Hello, it's me again. So I was at a bookstore a few weeks ago. It was at one of those used kind of exchanges. We had some credit for some old books we had traded in, and I picked up this book. Claims to be The Unconventional Wisdom of Economics. It's entitled More Sex is Safer Sex. And it sounded interesting. It makes some claims that some conventional ideas that people have are incorrect, and I tend to agree. I think a lot of people are incorrect. And so I read, I read the, well, let's see, where is it? The sort of prologue. It's this communal stream idea. And the idea is essentially, I think what it's essentially talking about is externalities, saying that if people don't face the, if people don't have to personally pay the price for the actions they take, then they're going to take too much of that action. I mean, the classic example is pollution, because everybody pays a price when somebody decides to pollute. That individual, they don't have the total the benefit reward, or the, what's it called, benefit and drawback analysis. They get all the benefit, but they only have to pay a very small fraction of the price, because everyone pays some of the price of pollution. So, and I do agree that externalities are, I guess if you were to say a failure of the free market, I think they're about as close as it comes, where there are inefficiencies that are created. So I do agree with that. So then I got into this first chapter, and this chapter is called More Sex is Safer Sex, which is actually the title of the book, and the lead chapter. So I'm thinking, wow, they're jumping right into it. They're going to give us their best argument. This is it. It's all downhill from here. So I read through this chapter, and he makes the claim that if people who are currently having very little to no sex were to become slightly more promiscuous, that they were to essentially start sleeping around a little bit, that this would actually decrease society's the proportion of society that has any AIDS. And his argument is that if I don't know, I'm going to call them clean people, because that's kind of a short word and it's easy to use. If a clean person goes to the bar, that means that all the promiscuous people at the bar, now they have an option, a safe option. So maybe before there were 10 people at the bar, one of them had AIDS. Well, now there's 11 people at the bar, and so now they only have a 1 in 11 chance of maybe contracting the disease, where before, if they were to go home with someone at the bar, they'd have a 1 in 10 chance. So this is the claim. And I think that's essentially it. I mean, that's the crux of the argument, is that so more people. Now, if a promiscuous person has more sex, that doesn't help. That actually hurts. So I was thinking about this, and my first thought was, well, just because maybe Sally likes to sleep around, just because Sally has sex with Jimmy, who is, up till now he's been a virgin. He's avoided going to the bars and hooking up with people. Just because she has sex with Jimmy on Monday doesn't mean she's not going to have sex with Dirty Harry on Tuesday. And maybe on Monday, if she hadn't met Jimmy, she wouldn't have had sex with anyone. So in this situation, Jimmy is now exposed to potential, because Sally's been sleeping around. She's a high risk. So now he's more likely to now, he's at a higher risk. He was at 0 risk before. Sally's risk is the same, and Dirty Harry's risk is the same. Now, certainly, there is some, once in a while, maybe Sally was going to sleep with Harry the first on Monday, and now she chooses not to. But that's not going to be every time. So I think it's impossible to just say that definitely it's going to be a help, because I think sometimes it's going to be a help, but sometimes it's going to hurt, because now we've hurt the net to society has been hurt, because Jimmy has an increased risk and everyone else has the same. What's more, if Jimmy has now decided he's going to, maybe now he went from being a virgin, now maybe once every month now, maybe that's a conservative kind of, I don't know, maybe that's not conservative, once every 6 months maybe now he's going to go out and he's going to sleep with someone. Well, maybe 6 months later, now once in a while he's contracted the disease, and now 6 months later he's going to spread the disease to somebody else. And again, yeah, maybe that somebody else is at a lower risk with him than they would be with the alternative, but maybe there is no alternative. Maybe they want Jimmy and they still want Harry the next day. So I didn't necessarily agree with that premise. So then he comes up with a solution, and ultimately the solution is the government should either subsidize or distribute free condoms. His thought being that if Jimmy is he's concerned about his well-being, he wants to be safe, that he's more likely to utilize the benefit of a free condom, where Harry, he's already kind of screwed, right? So he's already a high risk. He doesn't care about condoms. Well, first of all, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think Harry, just because maybe he's a high risk now, maybe he's 20% chance of contracting the disease in the next 5 years, maybe, but with the condoms he's still going to decrease his chance. In fact, Jimmy's already such a low risk, maybe he's only at 1% chance. So he's only kind of getting that benefit of maybe 1%. So I don't necessarily agree that Jimmy would make more use of this program, which the author claims. I also think the author forgets that nothing is free. Yes, I mean, his conclusion is, well, if we distribute free condoms, we're going to decrease the incidence of AIDS. Well, I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, I don't think you need to go through the stream of logic that this author went through to come to that conclusion. I think that's just something people could intrinsically kind of think about, and it makes sense. If people have free condoms, people will use more condoms. If people use more condoms and have the same amount of sex, well, they'll decrease their risk of contracting HIV. So I do agree with that conclusion, but I disagree that this is some super effective thing that's going to have this extra benefit because it's going to encourage more people like Jimmy to have sex. But the other part of this was, nothing is free. So right, the government provides these free condoms. Well, who's paying for those? The taxpayer. So, I don't know what they're going to cost, but you're going to create all kinds of problems that aren't even mentioned in this chapter if you do this. you know, if condoms are free, people are going to use condoms. People are going to get free condoms, whether they're going to use them or not. They're just going to get them. You know, maybe they'll use them as, you know, balloons, or maybe they'll cut them up, and maybe they need the latex. They can use it in some kind of projects. I mean, who cares? They're free, you know, might as well get them. You know, and so this is going to do two things. It's going to, well, the main thing it's going to do is it's going to cost the government a ton of money, and it's going to do that in two ways. For one thing, you know, people are going to take a ton of these things. I mean, there any hypothetical use, anything, if they think they might need one. I mean, guys who go to the bar who maybe have a 5% chance of meeting someone before that condom actually hits its expiration date, they'll grab a few just in case, right? And furthermore, the other thing it's going to do is it's going to raise the price of condoms dramatically, because you'll have this massive increase in demand with, you know, the supply curve won't necessarily change. So it'll cause a huge increase in price. So that'll cost the government even more money. So they'll be giving out a ton of these things, and they'll be costing a ton. And that money is money that's taken out of the private sector that has to now go to fund this program. And that's going to have all kinds of costs. You've got not just the cost of the dollar they pay, but there's all the issues of deadweight loss, decreased incentives into the private sector, because people are able to keep less of what they make. And so I think that it's a pretty simplistic kind of argument. I think it doesn't consider a lot of the other factors. So I think both the premise that more sex is later safer sex, and the solution, I think, are quite flawed. Unfortunately, I've only finished chapter 1. Let's see what chapter 2 is. Be fruitful and multiply. So we'll see what the arguments are there. So again, I thought the prologue, the idea of externalities, I do agree with this idea. I think, yes, there are situations where there are inefficiencies, where people aren't acting in the most efficient manner for society. But I do not think necessarily that people having more sex will result in a lower incidence of AIDS. So, and plus, I mean, there are a ton of other things that can happen, which, I mean, I'm not going to go into all of them, but I mean, you know, you couldn't. I mean, maybe, you know, Jimmy has never had sex. He's been clean. Now suddenly, you know, that marginal cost of a condom is enough to make it worth. You know, he wasn't going to pay, you know, whatever it costs. I don't know what it costs, but you know, a couple dollars to have safe sex. But if it's free, maybe he will do it. Well, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so now maybe he experiences sex for the first time. Well, maybe he loves it. Maybe now he becomes a promiscuous person. And you know, maybe he didn't realize how much pleasure he would get out of it, and now maybe he thinks, well, now it's worth taking that risk because I get so much pleasure from it. So, I mean, there are things like that can happen too. So, you know, at least it's an easy read, and, you know, maybe some of these other chapters, I can't judge a book necessarily by the cover in the first chapter. Maybe there's some good material, and maybe I'll make some other videos when I read those chapters and give my take on them. All right. Happy January, everyone.